Hello, hello. Welcome everyone to episode 5 of After Duty Hours. I'm glad to, be back on recording these episodes. But before I begin, I just want to state the disclaimer that this podcast has no affiliation with Ramstein Air Base, U.S. military branches, or the U.S. government. Again, I am your host, Renee Flores Jr., and today I got the family man, Adam Morrison.
Hello.
How you doing, Adam?
I'm great, man. Thanks for the invite.
Man, it's my pleasure. We are actually really looking forward to this episode. So before we actually begin into the topics, I want to ask, what your thoughts on the podcast so far, because I know you said you've listened to a little bit of it.
Yeah. I've listened to Davenel Fields, Marcy's. As soon as I saw him, obviously you asked me to come out here before that. I couldn't wait.
Yeah.
So I'm excited.
Well, did you picture the room to be the kind of this small?
No, when I heard it was self-funded, I didn't know if it was going to be an empty room with two dudes and a microphone, or
Yeah.
I don't know what to expect.
Yeah. One of our teammates couldn't make it out today, but she would have been right there. She's kind of the topic coordinator, making sure that I,
Is that
stay
Courtney?
on course.
Courtney?
Okay, it's Courtney.
Right on.
What would you add or change? Would you change anything, or would you add anything, or it's
Uh,
too early to?
I mean, early days, Joe Rogan's got a pretty good set. A
For
neon
sure.
light would be probably pretty cool. I'll see if you could smoke in here, maybe a smoke machine or something. I don't know.
That would definitely be
hookah or
cool.
something like that would be cool.
Yeah, I'd have to get approval for that.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
for
I mean,
sure.
the plants are legit.
That was Courtney's idea.
Yeah,
She,
it's
like,
good. Add some flair.
If it wasn't like it was just no plants were here, and then these were actually in the front.
Yeah.
And then, first episode, I mean, they were on there,
Yeah.
but she was just kind of standing right there. She was like, And then she just walked out, and she came back with these two plants. We were like, wow.
Right.
Like, this
No, I think
actually
it's
does
great.
help.
Yeah, I think it's great. I mean, grassroots.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I think it's great.
Yeah.
Love it.
We're just trying to get more, kind of more input on, like, suggestions. Like, I know in the description it says that I want my guests to participate in, like, funny skits. Like imagine if I had, like, won the hot chip challenge and you and me had to take it.
Right. No, that would be kind of cool as an icebreaker.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could do something like that.
Well, probably towards the end, because trust me, I did one of that.
Yeah.
Oh, man, I was suffering. Like, man, I don't know if I have the video, but I was definitely like,
Right.
I ate the chip and I had to puke it out like
Yeah.
2 hours later. It was
Yeah.
crazy.
I think for me, the hotness, although I'd like some, but you can't stop the tears, and
Yeah,
your nose
it
starts
was-
running. It's pretty nasty. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for
but I
sure.
think maybe the what are those jelly beans? The
Oh,
yeah, the bamboozled. Yeah, those.
oh
those
yeah,
could be
that's a
quite
good idea.
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
actually seen them locally around here. I could probably pick them up.
Yeah, those are some pretty gnarly ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's kind of start off with the basics
All right.
on who Adam is.
Okay.
Where's your hometown, and give me some family background. Where you grew up, how you grew up.
Right.
How you got here.
So Adam Morrison. I've been in the Air Force 27 years. Been married to my best friend and beautiful girl over here, Claire. 20 years that we got under our belt. Grew up in a small town in Illinois. Like small, I'm saying like 1,000 people in that town.
Do you know the name of the town?
Beckemeyer, Illinois is where I grew up. It's
Do you know
about-
Davenport?
I do. I know Davenport, Iowa. So
Okay.
part of the Quad Cities.
Okay.
Yeah, pretty far from me. Where I grew up, about 40 minutes outside of St. Louis, Missouri. Farming community. My family, we weren't farmers. So by, I think 12 or 14, I kind of felt like I'd outgrown that place. And yeah, that's childhood was good. Played baseball, sports. Did fairly decent in high school. My mom was pretty terrific at letting me kind of do whatever I wanted to do within reason.
Yeah.
I have 4 sisters and a brother, all younger. So I had rules, but loosely
6 kids?
enforced. 6, yeah, 6 kids. My dad was
Man.
a truck driver. So he was a great dude. I joined the Air Force at 19, a little bit out of high school. And
Were you trying to go to college, or was?
college, I didn't think college was a thing for me. Big family like that. Grades weren't quite there.
You relied more on the kind of the trades and skills y'all were developing.
A little. I liked having fun. It was still in fun mode. I didn't really have any. I didn't really know like what I wanted to do. My dad, he passed away when I was 17, my senior year of high school. I took the ASVAB with no. I mean, I took it probably just for the sake of taking it. When I did, the Marines came calling first. I looked at them for delayed enlistment. I was in there for like 8 months, and it was a good time. I was in good shape. Ran a lot of pull-ups. Got really good at those things so when you're 18.
Yeah.
That's kind of all that mattered. And then I had friends that went away to school, and they had come back, and they were talking about, hey man, we're halfway done with our first year, and it got me kind of thinking like, man, like I'm gonna do this Marine thing for a little bit. Oh, so I joined Marine Infantry. I was gonna go do that, and I remember asking the recruiter, like, hey, do you guys go to school? And they're like, no, not infantry. I mean, not a requirement.
Yeah.
So I was like, a little bit older, and I thought, I'm not sure. And then on one of the more exciting nights of my young life, I got pulled over, got a few tickets, went to court.
Yeah.
That also allowed me to kind of rethink a couple things because I had more time to do that now.
Yeah.
With kind of how that all played out. And then, friends got further into college, and I thought, if school's not really a thing in the Marine Corps, I'm looking for some of that now. I've grown up a little bit out of high school.
Can I ask you, when you saw your friends getting through college, did you feel some sort of stress that you had to like keep up with them in a way?
I mean, I felt like, again, I'd outgrown where I was, kind of where I lived. I probably, looking back, thought, man, like, I didn't know too many people that went into the military and sort of left the area. To the people that I did know, who had done some of those things, they went to the Air Force or the Army, Marines, Navy, whatever, and they came back home. And for me, I was like, not knowing how that all played out, I thought the path to school was at least seemed more equitable to get out and stay out if that's kind of what I wanted to do. So again, just another reason why I kind of looked towards the Air Force. So that's kind of what happened. So they came back, thought about the Marines a little bit, talked to an Air Force recruiter. He kind of sold me on, we actually encourage you to go to school.
Yeah. And
for me, that was enough for me. So I told the Marines I was going to go a different way. They weren't happy about it.
Yeah.
And some of my friends did that, and great service. A lot of love for those guys. We were a lot of them a lot of Marines in Okinawa when we were there. And just for me at that time in my life, I thought Air Force was a easier, I guess, a better path for what I really wanted to do. Coupled with the fact that once I learned more about the Air Force, knowing that where the Air Force or airmen can get stationed to, or once they're in, a lot more opportunities to sort of travel and do sort of things like that. Because the Marines, it's you got East Coast, West Coast, and Okinawa as the primary places.
Yeah. The only reason I asked that question before on like whenever you said you looked towards the people that that you were going through this process and they were getting their education, going to school.
Yes.
Some of that stuff was kind of in my head whenever I was going through school. Right. I saw people doing a lot better than me, and it was kind of, everybody was on Twitter. I mean, I was on Twitter at the time, and everyone's saying how they're doing these great things. People are posting pictures. Oh, look, I got a car now. So it was almost like you were like almost living up to an expectation to where you can kind of boast about it. And it was kind of, it took over my life to where it was like, I gotta beat these people.
Do better, yeah.
Yeah, I gotta beat all these people. And I mean, it took me a while to get over that. I mean, it took some growing up to do. I mean, I didn't join the Air Force until I was 24, and then by the time I graduated BMT, I was 25. So like I went through it all to where I had to delete Twitter because I was like all these people were just telling me about their successes, where it kind of faced me with my failures.
Yeah.
I'm behind, like I'm living paycheck to paycheck. These people are graduating with their bachelor's degree out of UT, out of Texas A&M. And people are posting pictures with their college rings, and I was like, I just felt so much under pressure, not even like under my family.
Yeah.
Um,
But just your friends.
yeah,
And you did go to school before the Air Force.
I did.
Yeah. And how long for?
I went for about 2.5 years before I Q dropped all my classes and decided to get out
Okay.
after the winter of, I guess you could say, my 5th semester.
Okay. And then the Air Force, how long before that happened?
A while.
Yeah.
I mean, I got out of college around maybe a little after I was 21.
Okay.
And then my dad, he was like, you should join the Air Force.
Okay.
He
Right
said-
away.
No, not right away.
Okay.
But after I worked at a paintball place, and
Okay.
then I worked at Buc-ee's. And Buc-ee's was good. I thought I was gonna stay there forever.
Okay.
But some things happen.
Yeah.
But after a certain amount of time, where my dad was seeing the emotions I was having, after living paycheck, because I tried to move out. I
Right.
moved out twice. One had to cancel because my roommates bailed out on me, and then
Okay.
one I got with a roommate at Buc-ee's, but he had to cancel, but we already signed. So I couldn't cancel, so I ended up living there by myself. They actually allocated another room for me to stay in, only 1 bedroom instead of
Okay.
2 bedrooms. So, I mean, it worked out.
Yeah.
But after a while, my dad was like, you're going to be in, what do they call the fast food services, like that type of retail?
I mean, I guess it would be retail. Yeah.
Yeah, he says you're going to catch yourself in a retail
Or
type
services,
of
service
yeah.
industry, something like that.
Yeah, he told me I would find myself at the bottom working, struggling, for the rest of my life, or I could look into joining the Air Force, learn a trade, either stay in
Yeah.
or bring that trade out.
Yeah, my first job was I worked at a McDonald's, and there were some, hats off to
It's
them
hard.
because
It's hard.
they wouldn't. I mean, these places wouldn't be there if it wasn't for high school kids, older adults to be willing
Yeah.
to take those jobs.
Yeah,
So
it's very tough. I feel bad.
Yeah.
Like I remember, this is just a side story, but when I worked at Buc-ee's, some of us we would go out and go to the bars and like just hang out after a shift because we
Yeah.
would get out at 10:30 p.m.
Mm.
So I mean, we'd get ready, then go out. We'd probably arrive at like midnight.
Yeah.
We'd get out at like 3 a.m. and then we'd go to this. I remember we went to Jack in the Box. And these guys are crazy. They were like, "Yeah, I'll have 60 tacos,"
Right,
which
yeah.
is like for $30.
Yeah,
And there was only one guy in there.
he's making them all.
Yeah, and like when we're paying him, he's sweating,
Yeah.
and I was like, after we paid for him, I was like, yeah, we'll just be in the parking lot, it's no rush or anything.
Yeah.
But I just felt so bad. I was like, man, this guy's probably
hard
only
work.
making like $8.50
Yeah,
or like 11.
right. Well, minimum wage when I was.
Well, this
working
was in
like,
Texas.
Yeah, $4.25. I think $4.50 an hour was minimum wage. I worked there for like
Yeah,
2 weeks. I think I worked at
McDonald's.
McDonald's, and I just wasn't getting the hours.
Yeah.
Like I mean, there's a lot of there were. I say small community, but there were multiple high schools around,
Yeah.
and there you had a lot of family-owned type businesses. In the farming industry, you definitely had all the support, whether they're shops or tool manufacturers, welders, this, that, or the other.
yeah,
So a lot of those were more highly skilled places to work, and maybe not really feasible for high school kids to do.
yeah,
So McDonald's was first, 2 weeks, and then I got a job at a 16-bed facility, working with developmentally disabled adults. The basic purpose there was to teach basic living skills so that they could then move out on their own.
yeah,
And then the state had jobs for them that they could do, and they would live in their communities. And I did that for up until I left for the Air Force.
yeah. So you were 19 whenever you got into BMT.
19 in BMT.
Hmm. So
Yes.
before then, can you kind of name like 3 things, 3 growing up struggles you've had, and kind of like in lessons that you can hand off to
Yeah.
people?
So growing up struggles, I'd say, again, small town America. My dad was a truck driver. My mom, she worked at a place with developmentally disabled adults. So I guess early days, big family with not a high level, lot of income coming in. I probably figured out responsibility at quite a young age, at least taking care of myself, and then my brothers and sisters to some degree. So
you said you were the oldest, right?
yeah, I'm
Okay.
the oldest, and I have a sister 2 years younger, and she was quite helpful in a lot of those things too. But as far as the oldest in the house, I was trusted with a lot of responsibility to kind of be at home by myself quite early. Parents not home when you come home from school.
Yeah.
Sometimes not there when you leave. So just trying to figure out risk versus reward and how to assess risk, which I'm still trying to figure that out. I like to push the boundaries a little bit in some ways. Definitely. I mean, I got a few pearls. One of, I guess, my mom's favorite quotes was, or one thing that she told me was, don't ever not pay the same bill twice. So what I mean by that is there's some bills that are going to get skipped, but basically don't skip it twice in a row and get a service or get something turned off. So there was a lot of that happening. So she was quite resourceful. Again, she made it all work with my dad not being there. And when I say truck driver, he was a long-distance truck driver.
Mm-hmm.
So to give you an idea of what that looks like, he'd be gone 2 to 3 weeks and then maybe home 1. You know, and if you could imagine, Dad comes home, the 6 of us want to kind of get all of his attention.
Yeah.
And he was
drained.
And he was great.
Okay.
Yeah, and I just wanted to sort of spend as much time with us as possible, but then again was tired.
So he did a good job of like. Did he do a good job of like giving y'all that time that he missed
he
without
did.
kind of like pushing it to the side?
Yeah, no, he was, I guess memory, fond with us climbing all over him on the sofa and just hanging out with him, those kind of things. So yeah, 100%.
That could be an important lesson too of just, even though you have a heavy workload, I mean,
yeah, to some degree. I mean, I think we prioritize some of that. Like when I come home, my lovely wife over here, she'll usually. Sometimes I do this on purpose. So, in our current house in Europe, you can't. There's no door handle, so you need a key to open the door.
Yeah.
So I have a key, but I don't use it because I'll just knock on the door.
She got the.
I'll knock on the door, and then Claire will come and see me and greet me at the door. So I get to see her right away. And
okay, that's actually smart.
Yeah,
usually when I do that, I'm like carrying all this stuff, and I ring the doorbell, and that's why.
Yeah, no, I could have the key in my hand, and I'll still knock on it and show. So
that's some good advice.
Yeah, I think with what my dad, one of the most important lessons that I think we both enjoy is he was really good at leaving the road on the road and not bringing any of that home, and then also just with what, if you're in the service, what we ask of our families to just handle business whether we're there or not. Another thing that he did well that has sort of that I've tried to emulate was that he had absolute trust and faith in my mom. So 0 criticisms on paying the bills or how you're raising the kids or, what the house looks like when he gets home or anything like that. So not to say it's not, you do a beautiful job leaving your house. But with 6 kids, it can get quite hectic, and then, because my parents weren't there, you could, our friends would always want to hang out at our house.
Yeah.
So, for him though, that it was, he just treated my mom with like all that respect, just to let her do her thing and just to know that she's got it. Yeah. And, we've been married 20 years. I think it's one of the favorite things about our relationship that we have that we do that.
Yeah. That's definitely something that we're going to talk about later because
cool.
I think that's the strength of this episode, that I wanted to bring light to something that maybe I need to hear or Marcy needs to hear or anybody, listening needs to hear if, they're married, not to neglect that relationship. And like I said, we'll get into that later. Okay. But I feel like whenever I was developed kind of the script of this episode of like coming up with like the talking points is, I mean, I added you on Facebook.
Yeah.
And like every time you get posted, I see it on my feed.
Yeah.
Oh, and like you never you never get post. You never post anything sometimes. But like I see what you. So like that's something that I thought of. I was like, even though he's not in the picture, He's tagged in the picture.
I got a PR for yeah. Sometimes sometimes she gives me the courtesy like, hey, is this a bit too far? And I'm like, just do your thing, baby girl. I don't want to censor you. Yeah. I mean, there's we get into some pretty some fun things. I'll say that. But I guess we'll talk about those parts. Other lessons. I don't know. I've always.
How about?
Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
How about one? Getting into the next subtopic of marriage life within mil to civilian.
Okay.
One lesson that you've learned.
I
know you could probably tie in separating work and whatever, but
I think just married to Claire, obviously, so lovely British girl. I wasn't really looking for Claire when I found her.
Mm-hmm.
I was actually kind of dating somebody else, and then Claire was on. When we met. I mean, there's a story. So there's a girl that came back to the UK. We kind of hung out over the summer, and she was going to go back to university and do her thing. It was the end of my tenure. I was already got an assignment to Kunsan, and Claire had been sort of pestered by a mutual friend that we didn't know each other. So Claire worked for British Telecom, and in Cambridge, so 30 miles from the base, and our mutual friend who was Trevor. He worked with me on the base in the Allied Trade Shop. And his partner, Allison, she worked at BT with Claire. So my version of this is that Trevor and Allison they've set me up with girls before.
Yeah.
And
they trapped you this time.
They just never worked out, these other girls.
Yeah.
For various reasons. And then, so the girl I was kind of seeing who was getting ready to leave, she was going back to the school, so we had one last weekend together. We were going to go down to London and go see a show and whatever. Well, that Friday, I was at work, and me and Trevor, on Fridays, we would always go into Mildenhall Village and go to a pub and have a few drinks or whatever. That was kind of our thing. And this one Friday, he comes in and he says, hey, you can't come out tonight. And I'm like, what are you talking about? We go out every Friday. Yeah. But you're lucky because I have these plans anyway.
No, that's for me. Sorry.
Oh, and we have these plans anyway. But more to the point, why can't I go out? And he's like, well, we're trying to set this girl up with one of our other friends. So, me thinking like,
they didn't want you around because they know.
Well, he's like, yeah, we just don't want you to mess it up. We don't want you to show up, and then Claire thinks like it's you and it's not you, and so I was like, okay, I can understand and appreciate that part.
Mm-hmm.
What I don't necessarily appreciate is like, where am I on your friend list? Like, am I, you've set me up with girls before and they didn't work out. Why can't I see this one?
Yeah.
And then, so then that was that. And I was like, well, whatever. The weekend came and gone. But he said, you can't come over. So when we were getting ready to go to London, I come out of my house. I lived right next door to them, just funny enough. And I saw a car over there that I had not seen yet.
Yeah.
So I thought to myself, man, I bet she's over there.
Yeah.
And I thought,
you baked the cake real quick, and
I'm like, maybe I just need to borrow something real quick.
Yeah.
And normally I would just walk straight in their house. Like I was just, because we'd known each other so well. But to be extra annoying, I knocked. Just so when they answered the door,
some sugar?
Yeah, they knew that I was being. Yeah, they knew that I was being annoying.
Oh,
like I was just being kind of extra about it. And then on the other side of that, I mean, Claire probably tells it better. I'll try to do it some justice. On the other side of that, his partner would often go into work talking about me, about I'm cool, I'm this, I'm that, or whatever.
Yeah.
And so they were kind of giving her a hard time, like, oh, Adam, these are the things that they're saying.
Yeah.
And it's funny, we're married now, and we've been for 20 years. And then, anyway, so I didn't know any of this was going on. But then Claire agreed to come on the blind date.
Mm-hmm.
And so I saw her, and she was in the corner, like peeling some potatoes, looking pretty cute. I was like, getting ready for the dinner, and I was like, yeah, she's pretty hot. But it is what it is. I'm going to London. She's going to do her thing, go on a blind date, and then so be it. Anyway, the weekend comes and goes. And on Monday, I'm like, hey, how'd your thing go, Trevor? And he's like, we don't really know.
Yeah.
A week goes by, Claire doesn't come back.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, it must not have gone well. And then a couple weeks go by, and I'm asking, like, hey, man, when's that girl coming back? And he's like, I had a few months left, like 4 or 5 months left before I go to Korea. And he's like, I don't know, And then a Friday comes, and we're talking in the shop. He's like, hey, Adam. We're going out, da-da-da. Claire's coming. Really? Yeah. So I'm like, well, I'm definitely making out with that girl tonight. He's like, yeah, whatever, okay. Nice. And but then it was great. Like, we hung out, met her, saw her, just the best night. Like, we were kindred spirits. And I think at the end of the night, after, some tequila and some things, I remember, I think we were laying on Trevor's. He had like this elevated garden, and we were looking up at the stars. And I was like, I think I love you. And she's
man.
She's like, yeah. She's like, yeah, I think I love you too. And then we just didn't. Yeah. But
yeah,
I think a week later or something. She came back and started kind of staying with me. She would like ride a bus 30 miles from Cambridge every day to come kick it at my place. And then, I remember I got on the rotator at Mildenhall. And we kind of said, hey, let's kind of see how it goes, and we'll talk and this, that, and the other. I go home, and even looking back when I was there, my mom was like, man, you're different, I'm like, I didn't realize.
How old were you at the time?
So I would have been, this had been 2002, so I would have been 26 then. Nice. So Claire was 23.
Yeah, when we got married.
Yeah, so then, you're right, babe.
Yeah.
And then.
What's the exact date?
My birthday.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Okay.
Oh, we got married. Yeah, we got married on the 21st of August.
Nice.
2003. So it all happened. We did our thing. We said, we'll stay in touch. I go to Korea. We talk every day for hours. We still have them now. All the letters that we wrote each other. And it was just a great experience. At mid tour, I went back to see her. She was still cool.
Yeah.
She thought I was still cool.
Yeah.
Met her family. We got married. Went back. Claire came out to Kunsan to see me for the last month. All great things. And that was 2003. And after that, we went to Okinawa.
Yeah. Well, that's a great story, Adam. Like, that's pretty, the under the stars thing. That's kind of crazy.
It was too much.
I mean, hey, it could have been. I mean, obviously it was true.
Yeah.
But now I kind of want to get into some, into the meat of the episode of where we're trying to get to.
Okay.
And that's, I did my best on trying to do research on the military divorce rates, and I think this could be really important to talk about. So, I mean, I've got this chart that reads from 1995 to 2011, and then this other chart that goes 2012 to 2015.
Okay.
At the end of every one of them, they do state that military and civilian divorce rates cannot be accurately compared due to how they're tracked. So it's kind of hard to get some things, because sometimes they just label themselves as separated, to where they are separated, but they're not divorced on paper.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll put the charts on kind of the screen, that way people can reference them.
Yeah.
But I felt like going through some of these numbers. I mean, it says 4% divorced out of out of the enlisted, there's 51.1% married, and there's 3.4 that are divorced, and they're talking about there's total active duty military members across the whole branches is 1.3 million. So we take, I mean, I'm not good with the quick maths, but I mean, 3.4% is a good chunk of that. I mean, some people would argue, maybe one too many. So, even across from the numbers, and if you want to kind of look through these, I've got some articles printed out. If you want to, feel free. But even while I was here, I've witnessed maybe 3 divorces, and I've heard of 8.
Since you've been here?
Since I've been here, since 2000.
What about you, Marcy? How many? It's about the same.
5.
And these are all within your
Almost
your
peers.
peers. Okay.
Even I mean, I'm not sharing any names,
Yeah,
but
go
somebody
for
I
it.
live close to,
Yeah.
recently, the one day he just came over to our house after there was a bit of a kind of beef within our spouses.
Okay. Right
And
on.
we kind of were
Yeah.
like, we got to take our wives' side, so I guess peace out until then. But
Yeah.
one day he kind of came over, it was kind of shocking.
Yeah.
He was like, hey, you know how my wife went to the States? And I was like, yeah. And he says, the things that happen between our wives, it's not between us, or it's not even
Right.
between me and your wife. So I kind of want to make sure to make amends of like there was never anything between us,
Right.
because she told me that she's not coming back,
Right. Wow.
that she doesn't love me anymore.
Yeah.
And so this is, junior enlisted,
Yeah.
new, fresh out of
young
BMT,
airman, Yeah.
first base.
Yeah.
And then I've heard of airmen also here that have gotten divorces. I may have not seen it, but they have told me.
Yeah.
And even, I don't want to bring up my last two guests, but they have mentioned they've gotten divorces.
Right.
So, so I want to bring up the question, although these rates don't include specific situations, such as because of PTSD and other sensitive topics,
Yeah.
we should still recognize that the problem of getting divorced is almost normalized in the military, as if it was just a normal boyfriend and girlfriend relationship, just calling it quits and not, fighting for it. Can you give me your thoughts of how many divorces you've seen in the military so far, and why you think it occurs as often as it does?
Unknown number. I don't know that we talk about this topic quite often, especially, kind of now where I am in my career, kind of towards the end of that, where I am in sort of the tiers and things that, in our conversations with other sort of people of the same time of service or rank or whatever, it's probably it's as pervasive there as it seems to be in the junior enlisted ranks. So officers, I'm not quite sure how. I just don't have a lot of context on there, but I think for the enlisted, at least what we see is, certainly early in my career, it was pre-OIF, OEF. Iraq, Afghanistan wasn't happening. We were in the wake of Desert Storm, and then the massive force reduction in the mid-90s, and then I joined, and I had seen some things. I remember the first instance of anything like that. It was a friend of mine. He was deployed, and something happened between, and I didn't know what, I was in the dorms, but I'd been in the Air Force maybe 3 or 4 months, and we went to a house, and the wife was there. That's how we were at this person's house, and not being naive, I guess, in some way, not sure kind of what was happening. But when he came back, she kind of confessed that she had, cheated on him and all these types of things. And so it was like my first, thinking that, because in the Air Force you join, you got the core values, and you got all these things, all these people, like-minded people who join for
and
maybe
people even sacrifice to leave with you, like the spouses.
You, regardless of the reason you joined, you sort of became a team, and by the end of basic, you're all thinking the same, acting the same, and you're kind of different from the outside. And I didn't really see divorce in my community as a very
normalized,
common thing. Families stayed together. My grandparents, they were married 50 years.
I kind of grew up around the same.
Mostly
thing
Catholic,
too.
mostly religious. Some of that was
it's
in
just
there.
like
Very happy marriages, though, weren't they?
Yeah, you just didn't know. It was just a different time. I think, now with OIF, OEF, the separation. My dad was gone. Even as I was talking about that earlier, the last year he was alive, I think he was home like 70 to 80 days. So in my career, that's kind of stuck with me, especially during OIF, OEF, because, with Claire, and we have 2 boys and 2 dogs and all those things, I thought, man, no matter, of all my deployments, minus remotes, I've done 2 remotes, but of all the deployments, I was never home less than 80 days in a calendar year, like
Yeah.
like my dad was, and he was a truck driver for 80 years. But then my parents, they stayed married. He just passed away. So as far as contributing factors, I don't know. It's something that we talk about as far as what that looks like as you're transitioning back to, let's say for me in the next few years being a civilian, is, we take a lot of effort to prioritize each other.
Mm-hmm.
So Claire's my best friend. I try to be her best friend. My hobby is Claire. Hers is me. We got 2 kids that we kind of, pull into that, to some degree. But yeah, we don't. I remember, like my dad's grandparents. They slept in separate bedrooms,
Mm-hmm.
but they stayed married. And my mom.
Were they like, was everything okay
I
still?
mean, they stayed married until my grandpa, he passed away. As far as a marriage like the one I have, I'd say it's not okay.
Yeah.
Because of what I know is achievable. If you just accept the responsibility for your part in that, and then, so like for instance, what I see sometimes is this as an NCO, as a newly married NCO, I'd see people get married and then want to have all kinds of hobbies like bowling on Tuesday and softball on Wednesday and golf on Saturday.
Almost becoming a new person.
And
and it's not the person they married.
Right. Because in the dorms or whatever, they weren't into these things, but now they're married, they have their base house. They
feel like they got more freedom, or
maybe something. Maybe it's they're not in the dorms. It's like I don't know if maybe that's what they saw married people do when they were younger.
Yeah.
But I just feel like, and this was a thing in Okinawa at the time. You had all these people that would and then have all these hobbies, and then still want to hang out with the airmen, and then you'd wonder why, your wife's still at home, and because you're not including her in your life. You're putting barriers up. So I just know that we've made a concerted effort.
Do you think some people aren't ready?
Yeah, potentially. Yeah, I mean, maybe they don't know. I mean, I come in. I remember airmen. So my first paychecks in the Air Force were like $301. Crazy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like that's when when I got the GI
That's the
Bill.
defect right there.
Oh, every day. And I remember I didn't know a lot. I knew.
Yeah.
I went to basic. I was up at Aberdeen Proving Grounds for like 16 weeks.
Yeah.
And I wanted a car. And so I bought Claire loves it. I bought a 94 Ford Thunderbird.
Mm-hmm. Still here to this day?
Oh, no. That thing
I didn't know if it was,
No, that thing didn't make it out of San Antonio.
Nice.
So my first base was in San Antonio, Texas.
Nice.
And great car. I loved it. Lots of good experiences in that car. But, I didn't realize. I remember when I joined, I thought, base pay $1,000. Yeah. And, I wasn't making that kind of money in high school. So I thought, I can get I think I wanted a WS6 Trans Am is what I wanted. Mm-hmm. Anyway, I bought the Thunderbird. And my mom sorted it out. It was in Illinois waiting for me. Me and a buddy drove down from Baltimore to drop me. He dropped me off at my house.
Yeah.
And the car payment was $276. Mm-hmm. My paycheck was $301.
Yeah.
So then that was one.
Is that a including the insurance?
No, the insurance was $176.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I was a, very fond of the DFAC and very thankful that was just a short walk away.
You had to
have the DFAC, and then took 12 months to get the GI Bill paid off. Then I got $350 every 2 weeks. You know what I mean? So
Nice.
I was making it. But as far as the divorce, I think there's all kinds of factors.
There is.
My parents, my dad passed away, so I didn't grow up in what I saw was a failed marriage.
Yeah.
I don't know for you and what.
No, my parents are still going strong, and I feel like your grandparents' story is almost similar to mine. They never got divorced, but they got separated.
Right. Okay.
But yeah, they never got a divorce.
Yeah.
I may not I may not be super clear on that.
Yeah.
I wasn't as close to my dad's side of the family, rather than my mom's side.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just feel like, I mean, there's a lot of contributing factors, but when it comes down to, I mean, a lot of young people are getting married, and a lot of people are getting, I feel like it's almost rushed. Because it's like, I mean, for me, I got married in tech school. I had to pay about like $500 to get married. I was in tech school during COVID times. So me and my wife are married in Maryland, or I don't know. But we paid the money. People were on behalf, you know.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm not saying that I didn't love her, but I knew that's what I wanted. But I mean, a lot of people could think that way, and then at the end of the day, when they jump onto that other planet and they just start exploring stuff they never expected, you know, they never lived with them, and you know, maybe it's not the girl you loved, or they're not the guy you loved because they have some buttons that you can't deal with. But I feel like that was marriage for me. There are some things that my wife doesn't like about me. There's some things that I don't like about her, but it's not like we don't work to make it happen.
Right.
And I think that's what a lot of people give up on, and that's why I said it's almost like a boyfriend and girlfriend. If as soon as you feel like you don't like them or something that you don't like about them, you want to call it quits.
Yeah, and I think because, like you say, it does seem quite easy because it's so rushed.
Yeah,
you know,
I mean, it's
not
easy.
A lot of like, it's like, okay, well, let's just.
If you're there in person, I don't think it costs more than what we paid. But
oh no, not at all. But I feel like, you know, if you're moving.
Yeah, it's either break up or get married.
Yeah, and then the pressure to say, well, I don't, even if I'm not sure. So like early days for me, back 96 to whenever, you had some of these, like people would, well, I don't necessarily want to get married here, but because I'm leaving, I would get married because I don't want to end the relationship, you know? So, and then, you know, the person, especially on the civilian side, especially when you're talking about a foreign national, like a British person or a Filipino or Japanese. Yeah, you're asking them. Obviously, you know, Claire was willing to leave the UK. Yeah. You know, and just throw caution into the wind, and you know,
the military life.
Military life. Yeah. Yeah.
Welcome.
I mean, I didn't even know. I mean, she obviously knew about Japan, but I don't know if she knew about Okinawa when I said, "Hey, yeah, we're going to Okinawa."
Neither know Guam was even a place.
Yeah. It's quite good. Yeah, but agreed. I think, you know, and other social sort of concerns that the military presents with marriage and, you know, long-lasting family relationships or even friendships. You know, I'm great on acquaintances. Like I have my best friend. He was, he is. It's Ed Geary. He's a retired OSI senior master sergeant. Mm-hmm. He's living his best life out in Huntington.
He's probably listening to us right now.
Yeah, he might. After I'll tag him later. I'll name drop, and then he'll want to see what I said about him. But he was my best friend. The first guy I met at my first base, and he's an RFM mechanic initially is what he was. Yeah. And then at NCO he returned into OSI, and now he's doing his thing out in Huntington Beach, California. Nice. But yeah, back in those days, you would have like everyone would get married to get out of the dorms, you know, and some of those, funny enough, some of those are probably still going strong. Yeah. You know, and then others, you know, maybe didn't make it to the day one. I don't know.
I guess I just wanted to get maybe to some root of the problem of like maybe we can offer to maybe listeners who are newly married, and I got something important that you shared with me, the importance of family and career balancing. You spoke to me before on how your wife has commended you on how you separate time to make for your family while still being successful in your career. Yeah. What are some practices you do to keep your family life and your work life separate?
I think for me, I've just been, I guess it's just, I don't want to say easy, but, and, you know, I don't know maybe where it comes from as far, I don't really seem to dwell on a lot of things. I just kind of move on and make a decision or do something. And even when, you know, I've had some obstacles in my career, I always had I always got to, things are going to work out the way they're going to work out pretty quick, you know? So like
having that mentality of like, you can't control what you can control.
And just being okay with kind of wherever I land that's where I land, and regardless of whatever that is, I'm okay. And to be honest with you, that's kind of a mindset that Claire also has, even before the marriage. She's always just would know that she's going to be okay regardless of whatever happens.
Yeah.
So I think for me, whether it's the drive home, just like forgetting putting the day, because even today, I mean, I got involved in a lot of stuff today.
Yeah.
And a lot of conversations and a lot of meetings, and I've been while I believe, like, unless you have something important to say, you shouldn't say it. However, in
the words of Bambi.
But with our job, we have such a limited time, to make things happen, and so much is expected of us in what we're doing. So, I mean, being in 27 years, just try to figure out, how to work through a lot of those things quickly, and not belabor any of the mistakes or things like this.
So just keeping that mindset of, you don't have control of what you don't have control on, and kind of understanding what those things are.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. And I think, knowing that Claire, regardless of whatever happens, I know she's going to be there. I know I'm going to go home, and I know I'm going to knock on the door, and she's going to give me
be right there.
Yeah, and I'm going to get, and we have kind of.
Give him a big hug.
Yeah.
So I think developing some sort of rituals.
We do have a routine. We do,
routines.
Yeah. So I have one, and even this, and maybe. So Marcy, how long have you been married for?
5 years.
5 years.
I'll be 3 years this year.
Are you a morning person or more of a?
It's teeter-totters.
And what about your wife?
She's definitely later. She'll go to sleep before me.
Yeah.
And she'll wake up at like 11 or 10 a.m.
Okay. And what about you? So, yeah. So me and Claire are polar opposites. Like, so Claire will, she's the last one to leave the party.
Yeah.
Whether it's 5 days or however long, but she loves her sleep in the morning. Yeah. Whereas my default, I wake up at
4.
Well, usually
probably
3. When I look at the clock for the first time, it's somewhere between 3:43 and 3:48, almost like clockwork.
Okay.
And
so it's almost bedtime.
It's bedtime for Claire. Yeah, for sure. But I think, for some people, like, that on its own would be a massive thing for a couple to deal with. Especially if, let's say you weren't as comfortable in your own, like being on your own or whatever. So I think Claire's sort of allowed me to kind of, continue doing that thing, even if I'm falling asleep on the sofa like halfway through our movie.
Yeah. We never go to bed separately.
Yeah.
We look after the boys, make my boys pack lunch, take them to school, so we never go to bed separately. That's a really important thing.
Yeah.
I second that.
Yeah.
Mine is like the same thing, but I'll end up falling asleep. She'll be doing art until 4 a.m., but as long as she's in the bed, I'm asleep.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's important, I think.
Yeah, so like.
Wow, I guess all the nights that I was doing the ADD. I mean, I've lost 3 months.
Yeah. Well, I think did your wife kind of ask you to pause?
Yes.
Yeah.
We talked about before I committed to that. I mean, obviously, we both didn't expect how it would play out.
Yeah.
But I kind of want to talk about. I'm not trying to dodge it,
no, you're fine.
Because I think something important came to my head about separating life from your work, but also getting into a routine. And I won't be embarrassed mentioning this, but compromise. So Marcy knows about this, but I haven't really been doing this at all because I've just been exhausted. But I'm a gamer.
Okay.
So if it were up to me, I would game every day.
Okay.
24/7. But my wife is not about that.
Yeah.
And people can laugh all they want, but this is what makes and breaks the relationship. Are you willing to make sacrifices, and how much do you love that person to actually come to a compromise situation? So we came up with this thing called game days.
Okay.
So 2 days out of the Monday through Friday, I can pick to game.
Okay.
And those can teeter-totter.
Okay.
And then one for Saturday. Sometimes I'll let go of it. Sometimes I
Yeah.
won't. But that's kind of the compromise we came to.
Yeah.
Is she wants more time and less time on the game. And at some point I was like, well, we're still chilling together. We're in the same room, you
Right.
know. I mean, instead of sitting down watching TV, I'm just gonna be,
Yeah.
or like sitting down and we're on our phones. I'm just gonna be on the game.
Yeah.
But you know, I had to really, you know, step away from myself and really kind of look at the situation of how she feels,
Right.
and kind of take into what she says into consideration. You know, we came to that compromise, and I think that's one of the tough things on a new young relationship,
100%.
trying to be married, is you're gonna go through some changes. Now, I'm not saying those things that I'm not saying you should kind of that you shouldn't like their flaws or something like that,
Right.
but there are some things that are bound to change.
Yeah, I think if there are some core things, so agreed. So I know when we got married, I had a PS. I was never big into it, but I had a PS. I think I don't know if I sold it or I gave it away. I think I gave it. Yeah, I gave it to somebody else.
Yeah.
You know, just because I knew, you know, it felt. There was nothing that felt as good as knowing that Claire appreciated the time that we had together. You know,
Yeah, because you worked all day and then
Right.
you come home and play the games. Just
Yeah.
like she waited for you all day.
100%. I mean,
if you have to
Claire,
compete for your husband or wife's time, it's a problem.
Yeah.
How would you feel if you
It
wanted
was the other
someone's
way
time
around.
and they're like, but I'm just doing this day. It's like,
Yeah.
if you don't feel like you're a priority.
yeah.
Yeah.
That can cause some damage long term.
Yeah. So like we're pretty. Again, some of this is through Claire. So even so much as you know, like looking at the person when you talk to them, or you know, giving them their, you know, your full attention. You know, because even sometimes like I'll get home and even though work's done, like there's
It
still
still lingers a little
and there's
bit.
carryover. Like on the way home, I got a message or I got this.
You know
or
what
I
my
got
dad
that.
does? He talked to me, you know.
Yeah.
You know, he's got a strong marriage, and you know, he always checks up on me.
Yeah.
You know, say how's the marriage going, how's Rebecca and stuff
Yeah.
like that. And my mom and my wife talk a lot, and
course.
so my dad's always like, are you doing a good job?
yeah.
And so he'll already know, and he says like, you know what I do, son? He says, you know, when my wife wants to tell me about something and I know I'm not fully there yet, he'll tell her, give me 1 second, I'm gonna go to the restroom. And he'll actually go to the restroom, look in the mirror, wash his face, and says, when you go back out there, you're gonna give your whole undivided attention to your wife.
Yeah.
And then he'll kind of take a moment and then step out, and
And go
he'll
do
sit next to her and says, you know, tell me what you want.
yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like,
That's clever.
yeah, I'm like, I mean, sadly, I haven't taken that advice. But hey, it works to
Yeah.
him, and that's the best advice I can offer to anybody listening here is, you know, communication is key. If you keep failing at it, you know, you keep trying. That, I mean, that's somebody you're devoting your life to. That's marriage. That's something that you you committed to. And I don't think it should break so easily.
Yeah. No, and you're right. And I think we'd all agree that obviously some people are better off, even if they were married, maybe especially when you have kids and things like this, that they are better off no longer married.
Yeah.
You know, as you grow and you change and you go through experiences,
Yeah.
you know, loss of extra family members, or you know, with asking Claire, you know, we were fortunate. So Claire lost her mom a couple years ago, and we just happened to be in the UK, you know, when that happened. So you know, we were there for that, you know.
Yeah.
So if that not had happened, and we've been pretty fortunate throughout my whole career that we've not encountered a lot of loss like that, like nothing really tragic has happened. Yeah. So again, all those things are
Are definitely a factor in
Yeah.
you know where that person is sitting at.
Yeah, and I think also for us, where I'm at now, it's kind of on the other side of that. It's you have people that are getting ready for the next chapter of their lives, like post-military, and you have, you know, our spouses have watched us. So let's, in my example, whatever a successful career looks like for you,
Yeah.
whether it's you're doing 6 years and you end up, you know, getting a commission, or you just survive 4 years,
Yeah.
if that's enough, or like in my case, you know, just overcoming the loss of a stripe early in my career, coming back from that, making chief, building a successful, like a totally loving marriage, which is my favorite part of my life is being married to Claire. And then, as we get out, we have just peers of mine, they're, because it's what we talk about now, that, you'll hear an offhanded comment about, being maybe a not less than demanding job, whether you're working at a supermarket or you're cutting grass, so for the spouses, they've seen us strive to achieve so much. And, I think when we walk around and, I've tried to be impactful to a lot of people, some it's worked out quite well. And when Claire hears stories about something I've done or said or whatever, she feels quite happy about that. And, because I've asked her to put her life kind of on hold in some ways for a long time. So to respect the sacrifice that she's giving, I owe her everything that I can possibly do or provide to compensate and to share the appreciation for those things. And I think somewhere along the way, I think if I were to tell anybody coming into the service, the first thing to know that it's not all about you. Like nothing is, regardless of whatever you do in your career, it's not you. It's for everybody else around you, And so just to kind of spread that forward
I haven't made any sacrifices out of it. I think I've had the best out of anyone I've made my entire life. It's not a sacrifice being married to you.
Wow, you're lovely.
It's been cool.
Yeah. So we're just, again, lucky in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And again, just
And
knowing.
He's quite modest. Sorry, he's so modest.
No.
Modest, and he finds it hard to kind of compliment himself. That's why I big him up a lot because he needs.
Facebook,
I think everyone.
He's so cool. He's so Patrick Swayze about everything.
Yeah, everyone speaks highly of you, and I mean, we all see why.
Yeah, it means a lot.
So this next question, I can expand on what I've written.
Okay.
But so married, junior, enlisted may struggle with the concept of being highly competitive in their careers to progress while sacrificing time for their spouses. Was there a time that I've been hearing a lot, so I didn't know if there was a time where you struggled at some point to kind of grasp the idea to where you had to be involved in volunteering, you had to be involved in a lot of your work and be highly competitive if you wanted to progress.
Yes.
And in doing that, you've sacrificed time at home with your wife. Was there any time that you've kind of done that?
So Master Sergeant was like that in some degree. Again, so for me, a little bit unique to overcome the loss of a stripe because you just lose time. And going through that and seeing, and really the way I was treated or felt going through that, it's kind of what motivated me to want to do some of the things I did later on in my second career. So Master Sergeant was quite hard because, if you're successful in the military, whether that's as a 4-year enlistee or you stay for 30 years, you could be successful everywhere. The sky's the limit in any capacity, anywhere around the world. It's the same. So when you're surrounded by high caliber people who are all striving for the same things that you are for their own reasons, and also because there are so many ways to get there. Master Sergeant it's hard to not look over your shoulder at what somebody else is doing. It's hard for senior or A1Cs who are trying to compete for below the zone.
Yeah.
And you have people who have said things like, when I was a senior, when I made senior, I had another senior NCO tell me that, on Friday, congrats, hey, proud of you, you made senior, good job. And then on Monday was, okay, congrats on senior, but here's what you really need to know, is that, the Chiefs and all these others, senior could be the most difficult stripe because all the Chiefs know you're so close. And, saying no to the wrong thing or saying yes to the wrong thing or doing the wrong thing or all that, you could be saying no to everything, whether that's at the shopette and maybe a chief doesn't like or somebody that's influential in that way up at that tier group or higher, that maybe the way you carry yourself outside of work is enough to keep you from, something that you maybe have strived for 10 years or more for. So I think just feeling like that, or knowing that there were some people that thought that way, it was hard to ignore, or nearly impossible to ignore that fact. So yeah, I mean, that's, I guess, the first time that I felt sort of angst, because what would happen for me, or the way it sort of manifested, I guess, is that if I wasn't, because for me, one of the things I was told early in my career was every time you get promoted, that's 15 more minutes on both sides of the day. So if Airman Basic and Airman come in at 6:45 because on time is 15 minutes early, then A1Cs are coming at 6:30, and senior airmen are coming at 6:15, and staff sergeants are coming at 6, and techs 5:45, and masters 5:30, and we had one senior. And the best senior, arguably the best senior I ever worked for, was, I got lucky at my first base to have this guy. Senior Master Sergeant retired Eddie Thomas, great dude. Love him like a father figure for me. Kept me out of a lot of trouble, kept me straight. Didn't work all the time, but but he was fair when I kind of ventured off course, but that's what he said, and it's on both sides of the day. So then that's sort of the mindset. So especially when I got in trouble, I knew, so I wasn't a talent guy per se. I mean, we have several in our unit now that are talent driven. So coupled with the effort, they're going to be tremendous. I was always early, never shied away from a hard job, and I'd stay late. And I cared about what my boss's job was, what that person was doing. So I kind of figured that out quite early, and I think that was how I sort of how I overcame the loss of the stripe and became valuable to the people I worked for and alongside.
And then separating that.
Answering your question, though, I think that you said it, how did you not make that too impactful on your relationship, your marriage and things.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty about us having a different sleep schedule. Yeah. I don't be out the house, he'd be gone to the office at 4 o'clock in the morning. I was still be getting my beauty sleep, so it didn't impact me at all, but he was getting stuff done while I was sleeping. So.
Right, so that part is true. So, I mean, there were times, at Master, though, I mean, I was, so I would be, upset with myself if I wasn't out the door at 5 a.m. If that's just, in the whole drive to work, I'd be because I would feel unready and unprepared for the people that are going to show up, and then I would stay until 6, 7, 8, I
mean, for me, with this question that kind of, stemmed from me, that I feel like maybe other junior enlisted kind of think about is, I want to progress in this career for many reasons, and money may be one of the lowest ones.
Right.
I want to. It has to do with money, but it's for good reasons. It's I want to provide for my family, and I am having a newborn.
Yeah.
And I know I just want to make sure that they're well taken care of. Right. And luckily, my sisters, they're both, they're graduated from college, UT. I mean, not UT. I mean, my sister would hate that I just said that. Texas A&M.
A&M, right. Oh, yeah, good school. Good
school. And U of H. I meant to say U of H before UT. But,
yeah, you'll hear about that.
Yeah, maybe. So they graduated. They got great careers.
Yeah.
I've been so fortunate to have a family that supports me whenever I need, financial help as well. Yeah. They've just helped me so much. And I want to get to that point where I can give back almost at the same level they've given back. I mean, the moment I lost my job at Buc-ee's and I had to foreclose, or I don't know what it's called, but to get rid of the apartment because I couldn't pay for it anymore, I had to pay that big fine at the end for not keeping within the contract.
Okay.
It was almost $2,000, and my sister paid it. Never asked for any money back.
Yeah.
thankful that she graduated from Texas A&M as an electrical engineer.
Yeah, go Aggies.
But no, seriously, that's one of my biggest motivational factors. So it's like I'm so hungry for it that I neglect that time with my wife, because I've been told, don't be at work sending so many emails where you're neglecting your work. So I'm like, okay, so how am I supposed to? So I'll go home, and when I get home, I'm typing up emails, drafting emails, send them to my government email. That way, when I get back to work the next day, I can just copy, paste, edit, send.
Yeah, I think what also we do quite well is Claire would come see me at work for lunch. Even now, she'll sort of do her routine through the week is to kind of do the school run, drop kids off school, come check in with me at the week. So having those sort of like impromptu, spontaneous sort of check-ins is quite good.
With people who don't have cars, though,
Yeah, I mean that's tough. That's tough. Yeah.
When I had the children, I did stop working, so
Yeah.
I wasn't chasing a career. I think if you're both also chasing careers, that can be quite hard, because it's hard to find time if you're both passionate about this career and climbing the ladder.
Yeah.
Whereas obviously I wanted to be a wife, I wanted to be a mum. I agreed to that. Adam supported me all the time. Said, you want to work, you work. You don't. I've got your back either way.
Yeah.
And I think that's been a massive part of the way our dynamic is now.
Yeah.
Because I've had the time to invest in Adam.
The willfulness to sacrifice.
Yeah, but again, I don't see it as I really, hand on my heart, I don't see it as a sacrifice, because I didn't have that. I'm never going to try and say to Adam, I wanted to be a neurosurgeon, and look at me now. I'm just happy.
Yeah. I think it's an important thing is those conversations as you sort of grow. It could have been different. There could have been a point where Claire's like, I really do want the career, and then it's like, okay, well, let's think about that in a realistic and reasonable way, and to give it the credence that it's, if I'm saying, hey, you're gonna, everywhere I go, I want you to come along with me, there's got to be a point where it's reciprocated.
Yeah, it's that probably the respect you developed in the relationship, because if they trust you, they trust you.
Yeah.
It's like my wife trusts me as well, and I mean, I love my wife. I know what I have. I know how loyal she is. And even my dad has told me, he was like, you've got one to fight for, son.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, we go through tough times. We go through disagreements and stuff like that. But I mean, I don't need my dad to remind me. I know, I've seen.
Yeah.
And so, like, I've developed that respect that where she can trust me, and to where it doesn't seem such like a command, follow me.
Right.
It's like, it's almost like a trust me. We're going to go this way together, and we're going to be okay.
Yes.
And so that's why, she's we've talked about me, signing my life to ADD and doing that, because I wanted to be competitive, and it's not even just, I'm good at it.
Yeah. And to be honest, that's one of the first things I did. Was at Cadena, it just sort of worked out that way that ADD became, I started as a squadron rep, hustling for drivers and things like this.
Yeah. I care about people. I mean, I didn't just drive them home. I put them around and I'd carry them in.
Right.
And like, it would be to the point where I'm like, where do you live? And he's like second floor, and I'm like, he's like, which one's your room? And like, when we passed by the room, I don't know, he didn't open his eyes, but he was and I did put him, I laid him down in the bed.
It's a tough job.
So it's like, I'm not, service before self is my strongest core value, without sounding cheesy.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, with my background of who I am, like I want to make sure the people are okay.
Yeah, of course.
So that's something I've grown fond to, because
it feels good.
Yeah, it feels good. It doesn't feel like I'm volunteering in something I believe in. I don't drink.
Yeah, I mean, it's a service that you can't match it.
Yeah,
the value and and how grateful the people that you serve are for having you out there.
A drunk NCOA person, not an instructor, but somebody who was going to.
Yeah,
he was explaining to me, the impact further in detail. He was like saying, like, think about every person you've taken home.
Yeah.
Each of them belongs to a squadron. Each of them has a mission to fulfill within the Air Force. If the Air Force loses that person, then they have to invest time, money into a new person. By the time they get to their, like...
millions of dollars.
Yeah.
And time. and mission lost.
So he says, think about all those people you take home and how many missions you're helping to continue. And 100%. I mean, I do ask them what squadron they're in, but I don't take note of that. I mean, we just have conversations and whatnot. But
no, it's great. It's a great service. I mean, I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was definitely time because if the drivers don't show, then it's you. If you're the squadron rep, and then it rolled into the wing POC kind of thing, and then it's then it was just good.
Yeah, I think the important thing that we can kind of put a bottle cap on this kind of section of still being competitive. You want to progress in your career, but you don't want to neglect your spouse or anything like that. I think it all just comes down to communication and even seeking advice from leadership.
Yeah. Well, I'll say it maybe even like this, right? You can have anything you want, but you can't have everything, So if I want the marriage, right, and in the marriage we want certain things, and we can agree like, okay, we can have these things, but some things have to come off. And I think just being honest throughout as you grow, as you welcome kids, because even kids, you're about to have one. Marcy, you got kids?
Nope. It's like Korea in 3 months. I'm waiting until we get out of Korea.
All right, man. That's smart thinking. But so, right, it's more than just like, it's more than just, so I learned this. So I did SAPR for a couple years, and the SARC there, when we were getting ready to have our first, she said something that kind of stuck with me is, you're going to welcome a child, but it's more than just a child, because it's my relationship with Claire, and now my relationship with that child, and then Claire's relationship with that child. So it's almost two new relationships that are in there. Yeah. And then in the child, which you're going to find this out, is you will take a back seat in some ways, because the child, not in the feelings and the emotions, but just on the needs of that child, and the emotional needs from the mother are different and different than yours.
Two different roles.
Yeah, so you have to be okay with that, and to be mature enough to deal with that in a responsible way.
Yeah, for sure. Just real quick, if you can shotgun 3 key points. What are some key points you can offer to a newly married couple, whether it be, I know you only know from a male to civilian side, but if you can give your best to accommodate even the mill to mill.
So I'd say, I mean, it's pretty, you probably think you get this from a lot of places, but the first thing I think that comes to mind is never stop dating. So for us, we've gotten quite creative with that.
Dating, like going out,
going out, getting dressed up. I know us in the uniform, like we have a thing, or it's become a thing where I don't want to do anything on. I need one day a weekend where there's no demands.
Full battery reset.
Right, like pajamas and sofa. Yeah. But then, so even us, you're gonna have a kid, right? So and once they get into school, what we found is, so date nights weren't attainable. We didn't really want babysitters or really to rely on any of that kind of stuff. So we did date days. So we would drop our kids off at school. I would take, so this also happened at Master during the most stressful time. So like we were talking earlier, is occasionally on a Friday, every other Friday, every third Friday, I just take Friday off, and we drop our kids off at school at 9:00, roll up into Cambridge. It's 30 miles away, hit breakfast, hit a couple shops, have a couple drinks, hang out for a bit.
A date.
Yeah. And then you pick the kids up from school, and that's, just one-on-one time. Cambridge is a lovely city. It's a terrific place. It's one of my favorite places in the world. Just to kind of do those types of things.
Yeah.
Don't stop dating. I don't know, babe, what else that we haven't said yet stands out, you think?
Especially now in this day and age, the distractions. If Adam is like, we put our phones away, we're not on our phones at night time. We don't even have them near us. We can't even reach them. Because it's just, if you're sitting next to your partner, and we do watch TV, but when we're watching TV, we can be cuddling. I've got my legs stretched out, Adam. We're talking, we're touching. But when you're on your phone, you're more concerned about what people are doing on Facebook than your partner next door to you. Yeah. Like going out to dinner. Do you know how many couples we see out to dinner on their phones? It makes me seethe. Yeah. And these young couples wonder why their marriages are not working. Because they're looking at what everyone else is doing while their partner's in front of them. And it just infuriates me. It's
Yeah.
like, come on,
That's
like,
actually this is a good point.
Yeah, we hold hands when we walk around. You know, we do all
I mean,
that.
you'd be surprised. Holding hands is very important. I mean, my wife can tell me that, and I've been. It's not like I don't want to. It's not a thought, and like I'm like it. You know, like I see where she's coming from. It's almost, it's like you don't want to become roommates with, you know,
100%.
your spouse.
Yeah. Another thing that sort of that stands out, at least for us, is, you know, for me, it's to, you know, because once I can get to work, I get kind of straight into it, and just taking a second, whether that's before I get out of the car, just, you know, hey babes, good morning, made it to work. You know, for me, it's, you know, it was never a need. I never really felt compelled to want to do that. But like with Claire, it means everything, because she's like, okay, cool, Adam's where he's at. I'm good. I can now get off my day and start my day and do my thing.
You take the time to connect throughout the day as well. That's very important, because you can't expect your husband to get home and he's been at work all day and you haven't even contacted him once, and you're just like, well, now it's all about me now. He's like, well, I haven't even talked to you all day. I don't even know what you've been doing.
Yeah.
But I just send him, it's too much detail. I send little things throughout the day, you know?
Motivational.
Motivation.
Motivation. Like,
yeah.
I'm not going to do that. But you know, it's just it's not the big grand gestures, although I do love a grand gesture. But it isn't the grand gestures. It's the silly little things, like he'll still leave me little love notes on the table, and I'll come down and find them. Just little, make my coffee, get it all ready.
It's gotta.
Little things,
it's. You gotta have that.
Yeah.
This is something I'm working on too. Is you gotta express your feelings. You just can't keep them inside here.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
and I'd.
How does your wife know you've got a problem with her if you're not telling her?
Yeah,
she might be
true.
oblivious that she's done something, you're frustrated with her, and then people go bitching to their friends about it. Well, he's annoyed me. I'm like, why are you telling me that? I'm not your husband. I can't help you. Go tell him.
Yeah.
No, bless him. Give him a chance.
Yeah, and that is something that we do notice. So if there's an issue, I don't go and tell everybody else. Like, you know, I mean, she's
how you can solve the problem is
like we talk. I don't go I don't have go to the barbershop or a bar with 4 of my best friends and like, oh, my wife is you know, whatever, and then she don't go to the hairdresser and do the thing either.
I've got 8 best friends and I don't remember. He's pretty chill. Like I'm not. People sometimes think Adam and I are like, oh, they can't be that good. But it really is.
It's quite fun.
You have to have the passion and love there. If you're not, I still get butterflies in my tummy when I know I'm just coming home. After 21 years together almost. It's just a thing. You can't buy that. You can't invent it. You either have it or you don't. You know, you have that passion for the other person.
Yeah, and so I think. Yeah, and that's kind of what I was going to say is, for me, just kind of thinking about what that, you know, so like setting the teacups. Our boys are British. Like, they have tea in the morning with milk in it. And so I'll fill the kettle up. I'll put the tea bags in, the sugar in their little thing or whatever. And then, so in our coffee pot, I'll leave Claire's cup out. So I think it's kind of me being present when I'm not present, when I'm not there. You know what I mean? So I think it's just kind of that extra little touch to show that, you know, I was thinking about her.
Our eldest son, he'll send him a little motivational text. And our son loves that. He's like, Mum, look what Dad sent me. He's like, oh, he just loves it.
Yeah. I think that's very important, and I really do appreciate, you know, you opening up, you know, about these topics right here, because I think it's important. And, you know, I do think it's sad, and I see where you come from, to where it's like, maybe this person will be better, you know, not married. Well, they probably shouldn't have got married in the first place, but it's kind of hard to figure that out if you've never experienced it. So it's like, you got to be very careful, you know, when you kind of devoting your life to another human being, because that's who you're going.
That's who you get.
That's
and you
chose.
You chose. Right?
You did say I do.
So, and I think and it's like, it's the best of all. So I'll say this, right? There are some people, especially.
So closing remarks.
Okay. Just to close this chapter, right? So if there are some people, you know, whether, again, I'll just use Cheese for an example, because that's kind of where I'm at now. That becomes such a big part of your life that, I mean, I know some that
because you're getting close to the end, I
think, and just attaining all the stuff that you've done, you know. And this is where I said earlier about, it's never about you, it's about everybody else, right? And I think for some, it would be easier to take their first name away than to take Chief Master Sergeant away.
Yeah.
Right. And I just couldn't conceive it because my favorite thing, for the last 20 years, have been, being Claire's husband instead of, because it's through her that I got all this stuff happening anyway.
Yeah. Well, Adam, I really do appreciate our time here, and I think everybody would very much appreciate this episode of just, great stories, great advice that we all need to hear, especially to maybe better our relationships. So I just want to
appreciate you, brother.
Shake your hand and thank you for tuning in to the After Hours episode 5. I appreciate everyone for listening. As always, we'll see you next time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.